Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gold Star Medical Business Services. My name is Lisa Majeski, and I'm owner and president of Gold Star Medical. And today I would like to welcome our new credentialing clients to the family of Gold Star Medical. Now, what I like to do is whenever we take on a new client, I like to give you an introduction into our program, talk to you a little bit about the expectations and about what is going to happen next so that we can take the mystery out of the process. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. This actually shouldn't take too long, but I think it will be very beneficial to you to understand how the entire credentialing process is going to work from start to finish. So let's just go ahead and get going here, and we will talk about how we are going to work with you within the credentialing process of Gold Star Medical. So again, welcome. We look at our clients as a family, and we like to treat our clients like we would treat one of our family members. And so we want to make sure that we give you the very best service we possibly can. And what this tutorial is designed to do is to help you understand the credentialing and contracting process. Now, one of the things that I'm going to tell you from the very beginning when it comes to credentialing and contracting is that this is going to be a team effort. Sometimes I think that our clients may have an unrealistic expectation of credentialing, thinking that they're just going to be able to sign up to do credentialing and they will no longer have any responsibility involved in that process. And that's very untrue. So I do want to make sure that you understand what you're going to be involved with in order to assist us in the actual credentialing process for you. So let me go ahead and get to my next screen. All right, well, I know that when it comes to credentialing, that this is, for most of you, a very scary and stressful time. You may just be starting your practice, and because of that, you don't have a lot of money. You've put a lot of money into your startup and you're ready to get going, but you can't do anything, or you can't bill out very much until you actually have your providers and your clinic credentialed with the different insurance companies and with Medicare and Medicaid. So we understand that this is a very stressful time. In many cases, you're waiting on your credentialing to start billing out claims, and your cash flow is dependent on this credentialing to go through. And unfortunately, the big problem with this whole process is that it takes time. Credentialing just takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. And so as a result, it's very, very important that we get this right the first time around. And what we're here to do is we're here to help you get through the credentialing and contracting process as efficiently and quickly as possible. So let's take a look at a couple of timelines here so that you can get a perspective of what is going to happen during the credentialing timeline. So the first thing that we're going to do with you is an information gathering. We're going to gather up some information about your practice, about your corporate structure, about the providers that need to be linked to your practice. And we do this utilizing a credentialing questionnaire. In addition to that, we'll be asking you for some documents that need to be sent over to us. The next thing that's going to happen is once we've received all of the documents we need, is we're going to set up a game plan. We call this the blueprint. And the game plan is going to be the meeting in which you're going to have with your credentialing specialist to decide what payers you would like to be credentialed and contracted with, what providers need to be linked to your practice, and what specific criteria needs to be utilized in order to get this done. The next step after the blueprint is that your credentialing specialist will do some scouting and reconnaissance. So we're going to contact insurance companies, we're going to contact payers to do research into whether the particular panels that you're interested in participating with are open or closed. because we certainly don't want to spend a lot of time and your money submitting applications in which we're just going to get a rejection for a closed panel. We'll find out what the steps are. If we don't already know those steps, we'll find out what those steps are to get the credentialing done. And then we'll get to work, roll up our sleeves and submit the application. So before we can even submit an application, these are some of the steps that are going to take place. And we're going to talk about all of these in more detail throughout the course of this particular presentation today. Now, from the application process to the determination of whether you are credentialed or not, we have another timeline, and that will be the submission of the applications. So, we've taken our first 4 steps. Now we're going to submit the applications on your behalf. We'll verify that these applications have been received. And then our credentialing specialist or your credentialing specialist will start tracking those applications. And we'll be setting up timelines for follow-up of these applications based on the individual payer's anticipated date of completion. And we'll try to ascertain that if we can. Some payers give us that information and some don't. Some will say, it's going to be a minimum of 45 days or it's going to be a minimum of 60 days. And based on those anticipated dates, we'll set up tasks to follow up on your applications. Once they've been submitted and we verify that the insurance company has that application in hand, then unfortunately we're in what we call the hurry up and wait time frame. So we hurry up, we try to get as much information from you as we can. A lot of intensive activity that goes on prior to the application, but then once the application is submitted, we may have to wait, literally weeks or months before we hear back from the insurance company. And again, we will try as hard as we can to get that information ahead of time so that you know what to expect. We'll share that information with you so that you're not, you can anticipate your business decisions based on when we feel or when the insurance company has indicated that they may be able to give you a determination on your application. Now, during this application process, the payers may reach out to us and they may ask for additional information. And if that happens, we will let you know immediately, and we need immediate and prompt responses to those, because in many cases, we are given a certain amount of time in which to respond to those requests. And if we do not send in that information in a timely manner because we haven't gotten it from you, then the insurance company or the payer may close that application, and then we have to start all over again. And we certainly don't want that to happen. Now, once the process has run its course, we will receive either an approval or a denial from your insurance company. I will say that the vast majority of applications that we submit are approved, but they may be denied based on a number of different factors. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a bit. Now, once the application is approved, we will notify you, and then in turn, you as an office manager, as a provider, will notify the other providers involved in the practice of the fact that you are now credentialed. You would want to notify your office manager and or the billing department of that approval so they can get to work and get started. And the other thing that you'll need to do is, once your credentialing applications are approved, you'll want to notify your electronic billing practice management software, set that up for billing out to that particular payer, set up the link to your clearinghouse. Sometimes something called an EDI enrollment, electronic data interchange enrollment, needs to be done as a conclusion to that process. That is usually done at the office level. This isn't something that we do as part of the credentialing, but we will let you know if EDI enrollment is necessary. And you may, in addition, need to set up what is known as ERA, which is electronic remittance advice, and EFTs, electronic funds transfers, if that part has not already been done during the credentialing. Some of the credentialing applications include ERA and EFT setup. Some of them don't. Some of them will not. You won't be doing the ERA or EFT setup until after you're approved. So, but we'll let you know what those next steps need to be so that you can take those appropriate steps. Now, in the unfortunate event that your application is denied, we'll schedule a meeting with you to determine the next steps, because we can't automatically appeal these. Sometimes the denial may be based on the insurance company, for example, finding out that the provider you're trying to credential has a license suspension that we were not made aware of. Or they may, there may be other reasons for the denial. For instance, it's possible that when we submit an application, or actually when prior to that, when we do a query as to whether a certain panel is open for new providers, when we call them, it may be open, but it could be closed a week later. So by the time we submit the application, the panel is closed, and that's not something that we would be aware of. So in that unfortunate situation, then we would reach out to the payer to find out, okay, do you know if and when the panel will reopen? And then we can set a follow-up to submit that application at that time. But we'll also discuss that with you and let you know what the situation is. If the denial is appealable, then we will follow the appeals process that is set forth by the payer. The payer will give us the steps that we need to do to appeal that negative determination. Again, the vast majority of the applications that we submit are approved. We try to find out if insurance panels are open or closed before we even submit applications. But again, sometimes these windows are so small that we may find out, we may be given information about an open panel only to find out within a week or two of that inquiry that they have closed the panel. Remember that that insurance panels are open or closed based on the volume of applications they receive at any given time and the volume of providers they have within a specific geographic region. So it may be that as a certain type of specialty or a certain type of provider, the insurance company may already have enough providers in your geographic area, and so therefore they won't offer you a contract. We try to find that out in advance, if at all possible, but we cannot make any guarantees as to whether that open panel will hold up during that application process. That's why it's so important for us to make sure that we have all the information we need before we make these calls to the insurance companies and before we submit the application, so that we're not in danger of charging you for applications that are going to be denied. Remember that our process is to submit applications for you. And, we run a business. So if we submit an application, we're going to charge you for it. And we're going to do everything we can to try to ascertain and give you as much reason for that application to be successful as possible. But there are no guarantees. And so if an application is submitted, it will incur a charge whether or not that application is approved or denied. So I just want you to be aware of that ahead of time. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this process of gathering the information. As part of your welcome packet, you will receive something called a credentialing questionnaire. Now, this questionnaire is provided to you in an Excel document, and there are multiple tabs across the bottom of the form. Each tab needs to be filled out by the appropriate party. Incomplete questionnaires will result in delays because we're just going to have to come back to you and tell you, hey, you didn't fill this part out, or you didn't fill that part out. And having to go back and forth with you on incomplete data will only further delay the process. So please reach out if you need guidance, if there's anything within the questionnaire that you don't understand or that you're not sure if you need, reach out to our pre-credentialing department so that we can assist you and help you make sure you're getting the correct and accurate information to us. Now, this is a screenshot of the first page of the credentialing questionnaire. And as you'll notice, if you look along the bottom of the screen, you'll see those multiple tabs. So you see that the first tab that you're in right now is the practice and owner information. So if, let's say, you're a new medical entity and you need to register your entity with the payer before you can link the providers, then you need to fill this information out about your entity. If you are an existing entity and you have a new provider that you would like to link to that entity, we are going to need information about your entity. So typically, this first tab is always to be filled out. Now, in the event that you have a medical director, you will fill out the second tab. Even if the medical director is not a billing provider, we'll need the information about your medical director. And then we have multiple tabs across the bottom for multiple practice employees. I think we have enough for 4 different practice employees, and you can always duplicate those additional tabs for the practice employees. We also have a tab at the end for your office manager and your office staff. And in some cases, the insurance companies would like that information as well. So, you know, this is the process that's going to take you as the client the most time. But once this is done, then we take this information and we use it to do all of your credentialing and contracting. So this is our document that we're going to need in order for us to move forward with your applications. This is the main piece of data, demographic information that is required to do your credentialing on your behalf. Now, the next item we need from you before we can even start any credentialing applications are documents. Now, the credentialing questionnaire will contain a list of documents that have to be turned in order to complete your applications. These documents may be needed at the corporate and provider levels, and incomplete document submissions will result in delays. And again, if you need guidance on this, please reach out to us, and I'll provide you with the appropriate contact information here in just a minute. Please be advised that each of the tabs across the bottom will have a separate document checklist. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom of each tab, there will be a list of documents that are needed by the provider at the provider level. So usually the practice and owner information, the document checklist is based on the practice, the corporation itself, and the owner of the corporation, those documents. And then the medical director will need, for example, a copy of the medical license of the medical director, their DEA, copies of their malpractice deck pages and things like that. So each of the providers will need to submit their own set of documents. So make sure you're reaching out to your providers and letting them know what documents they need to procure for you to give to us, or just have them send them to us directly. So these are some of the documents, and this is what the document checklist will look like. And again, if you have any questions as to what documents are mandatory and what documents are optional, please reach out to us and we will let you know. If you have any issues regarding the questionnaire and/or document submission, our operations manager, Camille Eldridge, is going to be the person to talk to. So before we even assign you to a credentialing specialist, Camille is going to be the person that you're going to be dealing with. If you submit a credentialing questionnaire to us and it's incomplete, you're going to hear from Camille. and she's going to call you back, or she's going to email you and say, hey, doc, or practice owner or practice manager, this information isn't complete. We still need this information. Okay. So we're not going to move you forward in the credentialing process, in the application process, until we have everything we need to do the job right the first time around. Because honestly, that is going to be the fastest way to get your credentialing done as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So here is Camille's information. Make sure you write it down, bookmark this, and we will be able to get that done for you as quickly as possible. Now, once all the documents are in, including the credentialing questionnaire and the requested documents, you'll then be scheduled for a blueprint meeting. You'll be assigned a credentialing specialist, and we will get that credentialing specialist to reach out to you. They will directly contact you. We'll let you know who that person is, but then they will directly contact you to schedule the blueprint meeting. Now, the blueprint meeting is a very important meeting that takes anywhere, depending on the extent of the credentialing help that you need, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. The specialist will meet with you to go over your specific credentialing and contracting needs. And then once they have completed the blueprint with you, they will email you within a day or two an estimate of the cost of the project. And you have to approve this estimate before we can proceed any further. So the owner of the contract will have to approve the estimate before we proceed any further. Now, about the estimate, it is just that. It is going to be an estimate. Sometimes we find things out during the credentialing process that will either increase or even decrease the cost of the credentialing. If that happens and there are any significant changes to the estimate, we will let you know, okay? So just be aware of that this is an estimate, and we cannot guarantee that the insurance company doesn't come back and say, you know, and I'll give you an example. We do a Medicare application, and let's say we are adding a new nurse practitioner to your practice. And you've been told that the nurse practitioner already has a Medicare number. But when we submit the application and we submit the nurse practitioner's information to Medicare, we find out that the nurse practitioner actually does not have a Medicare number. They never did obtain a Medicare billing number of their own. So now we have to go back and we have to do an application for that nurse practitioner, which incurs an additional cost. We will let you know if something like that happens. And again, you'll have to approve that before we can move any further along with the credentialing process. So once the blueprint meeting is done, and of course, you know, this seems like a lot, and usually this process from start to finish, from the time you receive your welcome packet and you get all the documents back to us, this is usually a 7 to 14 day process. Okay. Now it can be sooner than that if you can get everything to us as quickly as possible and that information is accurate and we have everything we need. We can set you up with a credentialing specialist. We can get a blueprint meeting scheduled. But realistically, I want you to consider 7 to 14 days before by the time we complete that blueprint meeting and you've approved the entire credentialing process. Now, once the blueprint meeting is complete, your credentialing specialist will get to work. And just let me back up a little bit. I say 7 to 14 days, but I've actually seen this preliminary process take much longer, because sometimes what happens is we discover during the process that your documents aren't lining up correctly. So for example, your EIN, which is the CP 575, which is the document you receive from the IRS that contains your EIN, the name of the organization does not match up with the name of the organization as it appears in your NPI registry. So now you have to go back and make sure that everything matches up and lines up. And sometimes there has been a change of name. So, if you're a female doctor, for example, when you originally got your license, your name, your license was under one name, but you've recently been married, you've changed your name. And now what happens is that doesn't line up. So those changes need to take place before we can submit the applications. 7 to 14 days is kind of an average, but it could take longer if, again, all of these documents do not line up. Your credentialing specialist will get to work. They will then notify you if any additional documents are needed. The credentialing specialist will try to keep you in the loop as much as possible during this whole post-application process. So once an application has been submitted, you'll receive a notification that the application for that particular payer has been submitted. During the active credentialing process, which is the process between the submission of the application and the final approval, okay, that's what we call active credentialing. Your specialist will send you monthly updates via email on the status of the application, or will notify you via email as soon as an application has been approved, whichever event comes first. So let's say, usually, honestly, in the first month from the date the application is submitted to that first month, all you're going to get is an update from us stating that the application is in process, okay? Because if the payer says it's going to be at least 45 days, then that first 30 days, there's really not going to be much change. Where you'll start seeing the changes in the updates are going to be usually at the second or third or fourth monthly update. You'll start to see movement on these applications. But we will immediately let you know when an application is approved. So even if we're in the middle of that 30-day update, if something happens and you get an approval or a denial, we'll let you know immediately so that you can take appropriate next steps. So please, I'm going to ask you a big favor is don't contact your credentialing specialist unless they have missed a scheduled update with you. So if you haven't gotten your 30-day update, then yeah, absolutely reach out and ask them for that update. But, we set tasks, we try to be very faithful in getting you your updates, but it's not going to speed up the process any further if you call us 2 weeks after we submitted the application. It's just not going to happen. So please try to relax, try to keep a good perspective on the length of time that it takes once the application is submitted to the time the approval has happened. Again, right then we are in our what we call the hurry up and wait phase of the credentialing process. Be aware that timelines for approvals or denials of applications will vary and fluctuate, and it won't always be the same. You may reach out to us and say, the last time we did a Blue Cross application, it only took 30 days. It's been 60 days. What's going on? And so you need to understand that we are pretty much hostage to the payer. So if the payer, maybe they took 30 days the last time because the last time they didn't have as many incoming applications. Maybe the last time you credentialed with them, they had twice as many staff members handling credentialing applications. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. All we know is that when we submit those applications, we are at the mercy of the payer to get those applications processed. So, the timeline for the approval of these applications is very much dependent on the payer's standard guidelines. Sometimes the payers will tell us it normally takes 45 to 60 days. So that may be a standard guideline for them, but then they will also say, or dependent on the volume of applications that have come in at any given time. So, one thing that we're kind of cognizant of is that, the winter and the spring are usually high volume times for new applications, especially the spring. Why? Because that's when a lot of doctors graduate from medical school or nursing school or PT school. There are a lot of graduations that go on in May. So June is a hopping busy time for insurance companies to process new credentialing applications. And so your wait times may be longer during those periods of time. Unfortunately, and I hate blaming anything on COVID, but unfortunately, COVID has had an effect on staffing shortages at insurance companies. And so the insurance companies' credentialing and contracting departments are running short-staffed as well. And so we're seeing longer than normal times of waiting from the time an application is submitted to the time an application is processed and approved. It's also dependent on the promptness of the requests for additional information. So folks, I cannot tell you how important it is if you receive a request for additional information directly from the insurance company, and it may come to you, not us. If you receive that request, you must act on it. Notify us that you received a request and make sure whatever they are requesting you to do, whatever other documents or questionnaires you need to fill out, that you get that information over to us so we can assist you with that issue. It's also dependent on the accuracy of the application. And again, the applications that we submit are only as accurate as the data you provide us. So if you're providing us with data that is incorrect or false, then we're going to have problems with your credentialing, and we don't want that. Okay. And just be aware that right now, in the climate that we're in right now, and this particular presentation is being done in the early part of 2022, that the determination timelines are running anywhere from 1 to 6 months. Now, don't have a heart attack. 1 month and 6 months are both on the extreme ends of the spectrum. So it's unlikely that it will be done within 1 month, and it's unlikely that it will take 6 months. But usually what we tell our clients is prepare for anywhere from 45 to 120 days. That's kind of the sweet spot right now of what we're seeing as far as the approval of credentialing and contracting applications. So to speed the process up, one thing I would strongly advise you to do is before you send your documents to us, make sure everything matches. And here's what I mean. So let's say, for example, you need us to register a new entity with a new medical entity or corporation with an insurance company. You will have formed articles of incorporation. Those articles, the name of the entity on those articles of incorporation should be exactly the same name that you submit to the IRS for a tax ID. So the name on the corporation needs to match the name on your EIN or your tax ID. The name that the IRS has of your corporate entity has to be the exact same name that is on your bank account. So the bank account that you're going to set up to receive insurance checks has to match exactly the name of your corporate paperwork. The name of your providers have to match to their legal documents. So if your provider is Millie Hardgrave, but we don't want to, and her real name is Mildred Hargrave, okay, then we do not want to apply to the insurance companies under the name Millie, because if the name on the driver's license and social security number says Mildred, then and we apply as Millie, then that's not going to work. We're going to get a rejection. The NPIs also have to match up. So if you form an entity, you will set up a type 2 NPI, which is a corporate NPI. That needs to match the name on the corporation, which also needs to match the name on the tax ID. The name of the provider should match the name on the driver's license and social security number. So for example, if you're a female doctor, again, and you recently get married, you have to change your legal documents to match up with your name and change that information in your NPI registry. So all of this has to be updated and matched up in order to make this credentialing go through as smoothly as possible. Check on these items before sending us these documents. And if something doesn't match up, fix it before you send it to us. Don't send it to us and say, I'll fix it later, because it's just going to hold us up. We cannot submit the applications with unmatched data. So please, please be aware of that. Make sure also that you provide us with the logins and passwords for NPPES, which is the database that contains your NPI registry, with PACUS, which is the Medicare Provider Enrollment Portal, which actually, good news, is the same login and password as NPPES. So if you have one, you have the other. We need the login and password for your CAQH, which is the Universal Provider Enrollment Database for most commercial claims. Availity, which is the vast majority of provider enrollment that is done for Blue Cross plans, is done through Availity and CAQH. And then any other online credentialing sites we may need. So if you're, for example, providers in the upper Midwest, they use One Health Port a lot, or Alaska uses One Health Port versus CAQH. Or Navinet. Your credentialing specialist will let you know if they need those logins and passwords. Now, it's not necessarily that we need to use your logins and passwords, but we need to be linked to them so that we have access to that information so that we can submit those applications online through those databases. Make sure you check the logins and passwords before sending them to us, and make sure all the passwords are current. So try to log in yourself. If you can't, it means you have an invalid login name or you have an invalid password, and just make sure you get that worked on before you send that data over to us. In some cases, these sites may require multi-factor authentication, which is a separate one-time password that, each time we log in, we have to, get this one-time password. If that's needed, then your credentialing specialist will assist you in setting up that multi-factor authentication so that they don't have to reach out to you every time they need to log in to one of your sites. That will be done at or after the blueprint meeting. But if you can at least check your main login and your main password, and you can get to the point where you're having to key in the multi-factor authentication, then we're good. And then we can take it from there and assist you with the rest of the process. Okay, so that's the gist of it. A lot of preliminary information and a lot of preliminary data that needs to take place before we can actually get into the credentialing and contracting process and roll up our sleeves for you. Now, we have additional help aids for you if you need them. I have a webinar that is an introduction to credentialing and contracting. So if you want to find out more about credentialing and contracting, such as the differences in what is credentialing and what is contracting, because they are two different things, it talks a little bit about Medicare, Medicaid credentialing. It talks a little bit about considerations of being in or out of network with certain insurance companies, and other items that may be of interest to you in helping you make your decision when you have that blueprint meeting as to what payers you would like to be credentialed and contracted with. I also have some tutorials for you if you do not remember or know how to log in to your NPPES or PACUS, how to log into CAQH. And so we have those aids available for you if you need them. Now, if you have any questions prior to the blueprint meeting with your credentialing specialist, the person that you're going to reach out to is my operations manager, Camille Eldridge, or the operations department. And her email is celdridge@goldstarmedical.net. C as in Charlie, Eldridge @goldstarmedical.net. After the blueprint meeting, you'll be given the email information for your credentialing specialist. So once the applications are in process and we've started filling them out and submitting them, then you'll be working with your credentialing specialist and not Camille. But Camille will help you with everything leading up to that blueprint meeting. All right, well, that's what I have for you regarding the credentialing and contracting process with Gold Star Medical. I hope this has enlightened you. And I do want to let you know that for those of you who don't already know about Gold Star Medical and about what we do, we are a medical administration company firm that provides a lot of other administrative services for your practice besides credentialing. And that includes outsourced medical billing. So we do outsource medical billing services. We can do medical practice management and productivity consulting with you. We can do compliance consulting. We have certified compliance specialists that can help with basically chart auditing services and other compliance issues. We can do virtual and or on-site staff training on a variety of different practice management topics, including billing, front desk, medical assisting, documentation, scribing, things like that. And we also provide training for state and national medical associations. So we have a lot of CEU approved classes that we can present to state, local, or national medical associations for you. For more information about what Gold Star Medical can provide you, please feel free to contact us for a complimentary 30-minute consultation. These are the numbers that you can call. If you're a brand new client, you can call our new client services manager, Rick West, directly at 325-650-5067. Or you can email me at info@goldstarmedical.net. All right, everybody, I am going to stop my screen share and I just want to take a minute again to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being a member of our Gold Star family, and we hope that we can have a long and happy and productive working relationship with you. Thanks so much, everybody, and God bless.